Absolutely crazy UFC news came out this week as we found out that Khamzat Chimaev might be facing Islam Makhachev in a crazy turn of events. And yes, I know, you, I, and every other UFC fan was sad when we didn't get to see Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, but now we will get just as big of a fight, maybe even bigger, when we get Khamzat Chimaev versus Islam Makhachev. This is two of the greatest wrestlers in MMA history, and in the current UFC today, I can't think of many, if any, wrestlers that are better than those two today, and they might face off in what is going to be a super fight in the UFC. And I'm not going to waste your guys' time, but if you want to subscribe, that is a free way to support me. We are on the grind for 1,000 subscribers. We upload 2 to 3 high-quality MMA or UFC videos every single week, and if you subscribe now when we're a small channel and are part of this community, next year when we're a huge channel, you could look back and be like, wow, I was with that dude from day one, and that'd be cool. But anyways, let's get right into this video. So the first thing we need to look at is how did we get to this situation? Looking at Islam Makhachev's recent history, he was the long-standing champion at lightweight. He's on a crazy win streak in the UFC. He only has one loss in the UFC, which was way back at the beginning of his career. But in his title reign, he beat Charles Oliveira, who's a lightweight legend and UFC legend, to win the title. And then he beat pound for pound number 1 Volkanovski 2 times in a row. And then he beat another legend in Dustin Poirier and other fighters like Renato Moicano. Islam Makhachev's had a really underrated run in the lightweight division that not many people are talking about. However, Makhachev is big for his weight class, and Khabib is his mentor, and they wanted him to push to be a double champ in the UFC, so he thought now would be a good time to move up to 170. This was when it was looking like he was going to fight Ilia Topuria, which would have been a sick fight at lightweight and definitely a super fight, but Makhachev wants to chase his dreams. He wants to put that fight on the back burner and move up to welterweight. So what do we have now? Later this year in November at Madison Square Garden in New York City, we get Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena for the welterweight title. I did make a video on it that I will pop up right here, and you guys could go check that video out after this one, but stay with me for now. So this leaves us with where is Islam Makhachev. He is fighting for the title, and if he wins, then he is likely to stay at 170 and have many more title defenses. His managers talked about when he would retire, about how many fights from now that would be, which I have another video about that, which you guys could watch here. But again, stay with me for now. The plan is that Makhachev wins the title at 170 and stays at 170 to defend his championship until retirement. Now looking at Khamzat Chimaev, he came into the UFC about 5 years ago. He's undefeated. He's been tearing through everybody, and his real only problem is that he's not as active as everybody would like him to be. He's a great superstar. He was fighting back-to-back weeks back then, beating everybody, saying he was going to smash everybody. He was looking crazy, like the best wrestler we've ever seen. But health has played a factor in his career thus far. However, when he came to the UFC, he was in the welterweight division, which is where Islam Makhachev is now, and he had many fights in the welterweight division where he stayed undefeated. However, the weight cut was brutal for him, and it was playing a little bit of a factor into his health issues, so he moved up to 185. And now Khamzat Chimaev is in the middleweight division, still undefeated, with wins over Kamaru Usman and Robert Whittaker in this division, and this weekend he fights Dricus Du Plessis at UFC 319. Make sure you subscribe to that channel because I will be dropping my predictions for that card as well as a betting guide with all the different parlays and other bets that I like for UFC 319 that I personally will be betting on. So now in this video, you're like, Travis, Islam Makhachev is at 170 and Khamzat Chimaev is at 185. How are they going to fight each other? Well, here's where this comes in. As you know, every fighter during Fight Week has interviews, and Khamzat Chimaev was asked about what he wants to do going forward in the UFC, and he said that he wants to be a triple champ, and he also wants to go for the pound for pound #1 ranking. And they asked him how he would do this, and he said the quickest way to do this would be to beat Islam Makhachev, assuming he wins the title at 170. So Khamzat would be beating Dricus at 185 and becoming the champ here this weekend. And then if Islam Makhachev wins the title at 170, Islam Makhachev will be the #1 pound for pound ranked fighter in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev would like to then go back down to 170 to beat Islam Makhachev and become the #1 pound for pound fighter in the UFC and be the best fighter in the world. Now, as far as triple champ, I will make another video in the future talking about this because he would then be going from 170 all the way up to 205 to fight whoever the champ is there, whether it be Magomed Ankalaev or Alex Pereira or somebody else. But that's another video for another time. If you want to see that video, make sure you subscribe because that video will be on the channel in the future. And here's some quick insider news for you making it this far in this video. And I give this to all my subscribers, so if you want insider news every video, make sure to stay around. but Khamzat Chimaev confirmed that he did have visa problems in the past. He said this is why he can only fight so often, and it is why he's never fought in the UFC before, but that the current president of the United States, Donald Trump, did help fix these visa issues, and Khamzat Chimaev can now fight in the UFC, as we see he's fighting in Chicago, Illinois this weekend at UFC 319. So there you go, that's some news that was an exclusive interview, but I'm here to bring that to you guys. But now, let's dive into the matchup of Islam Makhachev versus Khamzat Chimaev. So as I mentioned before in the video, these are genuinely the two best wrestlers in the UFC. There might be somebody else up there, but really those two are the epitome of wrestling in MMA in the UFC today. Looking at Islam Makhachev's style, you could think of him as more of a Khabib. He's a strategic wrestler, but he's wrestling focused, except he has a lot better striking than Khabib. That is something he's leveled up over the years. It was really bad at the beginning of the career, and Khabib's striking wasn't great throughout most of his career, but Islam Makhachev has really stepped up his striking. He even got a head kick knockout win over Alexander Volkanovski. But while Makhachev's more of a strategic wrestler, he works it in, he wears you down, he'll eventually get a ground and pound or a submission most of the time. He has a really good Darce choke. Khamzat Chimaev, on the other hand, is this fast-paced, aggressive wrestler. He can strike too, but he's going to put the wrestling on you. He's going to shoot 100 takedowns, and to be honest, he's probably going to get all of them. Khamzat Chimaev has never been taken down in his UFC career before, so he's all around a good offensive and defensive wrestler. Khamzat Chimaev's cardio has been brought into question, so that is where Islam Makhachev could have an advantage over him, but Khamzat Chimaev puts a pace on you in the early rounds that we have never seen in the UFC before. Khamzat Chimaev looks like the most dominant wrestler we've ever seen in mixed martial arts. Now, I mentioned how Makhachev leveled up his striking and is a pretty good striker these days. You know, he's no Ilya Topuria, but he's a pretty good striker. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to get it to the ground. Khamzat Chimaev is not as good of a striker. He's not a bad striker. He has KO wins, and he does have more power than Islam Makhachev. Khamzat Chimaev is a very strong fighter, so he has more power. However, he's not as technically sound on the feet as Makhachev. However, it's not some crazy difference, so that's not something where I'm going to be like, oh, Makhachev's the better striker, he's going to win. But it is potentially a slight advantage. Now, the advantage you have to give to Khamzat Chimaev is size. He is bigger than Makhachev. Makhachev will have never faced somebody as big as Khamzat Chimaev, so we will see if his dominant wrestling can carry over to someone not only of Khamzat Chimaev's size, but Khamzat Chimaev is a high-level wrestler as well, so I don't know how effective Makhachev will be against that. I'm sure he's still going to look good, but I don't know if he can dominate Khamzat Chimaev. Where on the other hand, Islam Makhachev is going to be one of the smallest opponents that Khamzat Chimaev's faced in the UFC, maybe besides like Gilbert Burns. So I think that Khamzat Chimaev is really going to have a power advantage here and a strength advantage that could really help him out in this fight. So going into a prediction, as I said before, if this fight gets officially announced, I will have an official prediction on my channel where I break down the fight even more in depth. But my early prediction for now is that I'm going to lean towards Khamzat Chimaev, just given his size advantage and how well that will translate against Islam Makhachev, who is a much smaller opponent and may have trouble translating that against Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat Chimaev is going to be not only the best wrestler that Islam Makhachev's ever faced, but he's going to be the strongest and biggest fighter that Islam Makhachev's ever faced, so it's going to be a tall challenge for him. However, there's always a possibility that Khamzat Chimaev has a bad weight cut and it really affects him during this fight, and then Islam Makhachev could get the win, or Islam Makhachev could just straight up get the win. These are two of the best fighters in the world and the two best wrestlers in MMA, so this would be a great matchup no matter what. However, that is all I have for you guys today. If you like this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Drop a comment down below. Let me know, would Islam Makhachev win, or do you think Khamzat Chimaev will get the better of him? But with that being said, thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys later this week in the next upload. Deuces.